Okay, this is MGO, and I might just start with the weekly chart, and I'll just mark off, what can we see? I'll mark off our highest volume bar over here, the low, the close, and the high. And at the moment we've just fallen below that, and we've just up thrusted on a bit of no demand. So that's a little bit weak there at the moment. I might just mark off the low here as well, that high volume bar, and probably this is our first one that came in that was actually buying. We've come back and tagged that in this last crash, so I might mark the high and close and low of that as possible support points at the moment, down in there. And we can also probably put a channel on there, just connect the first two highs on a downtrend, and then connect the intervening low of that one, or we can probably do even that one. I'll probably do that one and put that roughly in the center. And so we're still in this downtrend. We do have a bit of a higher low there trying to form, so we can have a look at that. But you can see how it works. You've got your high volume kicks in on your up bar, there's widespread up bars, really high volume closing low, so you know smart money are selling into that move. And you have this one, high volume came in, close in the middle, so there's a lot of selling in there, a lot of selling, but they push through and finished off. So I think that was the start of the selling, and they've finished it off there, held it up, brought it back again for more distribution, and it's come back, and it's had a little bit of a bounce there on a bit of less selling pressure. Well, we've got this one here, high volume up bar kicked in, next bar, that's knocked it back, so that's going to be resistance now. That's because you're getting trapped holders now to the left here as you're trying to work your way up, that are just going to exit when you try to as you try to rally. So we need some strong demand to push through and work through that area, and we're just not quite getting it yet. See how the volume's really low now. So most of the volume in the market represents the professional activity. You know, the activity of the professionals in the market, or commonly known as smart money. So when activity is low, you know, they're not very active, and we're actually suffering from that at the moment with MGO. You see this bar here has tried to rise up and rally, tag that resistance line and come back, and that's because there's no demand pushing that up, and it's closed on the low, and it's just not going to be able to push through all the trapped holders we have to the left here, unless we get a bit of volume kicking in. But there's not a lot of selling pressure at the moment, which is probably why you've had a little bit of a rally, and but just not a lot of demand either. We want to see the price then respond to that selling pressure, that lack of selling, let us know the professionals are interested in taking it up. But it could be this high volume up bar here is a bit of a worry, because that's professionals have to sell on up bars just because of the amount of holdings they have, so they need upward pressure to sell into so they don't mark the price down against themselves. So high volume up, and it's come off, so we know that was full of supply there, and then as it's tried to rally back through that area on no demand, it just can't. We need some volume to get over there. So that's probably, I'd like to see us be able to get a higher high, and or even if we get up there and challenge that high and then respect this, then come back and retrace and respect this uptrend line, if it's on really low volume, and then the next bar, what you want is you want low volume down like this, a test. That looks like a test, except it's not really testing anything, but there's no supply nearby, so that's the problem. You want to see the testing some high volume area that it's just tried to get through, but anyway, it's a low supply anyway. But then you want to see the next bar closing on slightly increased volume and increase in spread and closing high. That'll give you a nice little buy signal. But in a downtrend, it's in an uptrend they work quite well, but in a downtrend they can just shift this price sideways. So we need to get out of this downtrend and start putting in some proper start the price swing upwards, getting some higher highs in place, at least one, and then we can look at it when it retraces back to the higher low. If we get really light volume, then as it comes down on the down bar to show no selling pressure, then the next bar closing up on increased volume and spread to show that the professionals are perhaps interested in that lack of selling and are priming for a move up. And that would give you your buy signal. But you've got your resistance levels here, all levels of supply now, and you really want to get above this, at least the bottom of this high volume bar here. So I think that's your critical level. For starters, want to get above there and test it. So we did get above there initially, but when we went to test, the test failed. So we can get up there and at least start testing that break above, and then start testing the low here at the 20 cents, and that would be, or 20.5 cents. That would be a good start on the weekly chart. So that's MGO. This is PRA, and this is all the data I've got. So I don't know if there's a lot I can do with that. You see a high volume up bar. The next bar, once we break the low of that bar, this is the daily chart, and that's all I've got on the daily. It must be really new, is it, or I'm doing something wrong? And then once it breaks the low of that bar, that's full of selling in there. As opposed to this one, you get high volume pushing up, and then they come back and test within there, and the volume dries right up, and then I wait, and then up she goes. But it's and it never breaks that low there, but still hasn't gone up that far, has it? Well, it has a bit, I suppose. It's gone from 52 to 69 cents. Come down on really low selling pressure. Test. And it's just catching, on these two bars here, it's catching supply from the left here as it's trying to push through. There's really not enough information here to do too much with it, I think. I mean, I could try and put a pitchfork on there and say, well, it's failed to reach the median line, so if I was just being strict with my rules, I'd say to come back down to that low or below at least. But I think what we can do is probably mark the low of that bar as resistance, and then we look for, put the low of that bar there, and if there is support, I'll just mark the high volume areas on the chart and that we can look at. But really, we don't really have enough information there to do too much with. We've got the absolute low there at 45 cents until it starts. It's not really telling us a lot because it hasn't been doing enough. We can probably take this low here, put a pitchfork on there. It's not completing its swings, so those swings are quite weak. So I imagine that would come back down. But I think that's about. It's been quite volatile, hasn't it? It's making these wide spreads between 69 and 45 in a few weeks. So, I mean, it's not a lot we can do with that, I don't think. And the volume's pretty light as well. So, I think all we can do, if I just put my pitchfork rules on it, then it's hasn't completed a swing to go back to the median line. So normally that means it's going to come back and and a lot of times it goes back past the previous pivot. So that's all we can say about that at the moment. But really, there's nothing there that I can really properly analyze. It's just not enough information there, I don't think. But anyway, that's PRA. This is CHZ. This is the weekly chart. Looks like I put a little bit of a pitchfork on there, that price has been returning to that median line, so it's been respecting that. It's overshot it a couple of times, but pretty much by the same amount, so that's okay for a pitchfork, I think. CHZ, so soon we're in a downtrend, obviously. On the longer time frame, we can probably put another pitchfork in here, say, and that's even, we've got a steeper one within our bigger one. So I've marked off some high volume bars here as resistance levels if it wants to get up there one day. Got this one high volume marked. When I say high volume, it's not really high, it's relatively high. It's only a million shares traded. Some of these 1.5 million, but anyway, I've marked them off. They seem to be working. This recent one, we've had this high volume down, closed well off the low, an increased volume, and the volume dries right up as it pushes down, and then it springs back up to the top, tests, springs up, but a narrow spread closes that gap there and collapses down. Up, yeah, it's not really anything exciting there at the moment. We're in a downtrend. The longer term trend is down. We want to, most significant recent volume is up here at 67. Yeah, it's not telling me that it's wanting to go any higher. I think your immediate support is probably the median line. It'll probably come back. If they zoom through the median like that, they normally come back to the median line. So if we were to hold at the low of this bar, which is what I think will happen, I'll come back in and test that low again, and then we'll see if it can get out of this downtrending pitchfork. But maybe we should have a look at the weekly just to give us something. I mean, what we really need is a higher low on the weekly chart. We've got down on increased volume. It's gone up. Next bar up, so it stopped going down. After it went down further but closed high, so there must have been a bit of an attempt to support in there. Next bar is no demand. Next bar is like a little test. So that's showing lack of selling pressure. So I mean, that can sometimes, if there's not a lot of selling pressure then a bit of good news on the market, they can make a bit of a move. But I think you're going to have some significant. You need a bit more demand though to get through some important levels. You probably on the weekly chart, I can mark that low there at 55 cents. I'll probably mark the high of that bar as well. And we've got other ones similar to our daily chart. There's where we're getting our supports coming from at the moment. It's over here. So we've got around in that area we've had a bit of accumulation in the past. So we're in an area of previous accumulation, but we just got no volume to speak of at the moment. So there's no selling pressure there. All your selling came here. That's why you've got this down move. High volume up bar. And the volume starts to peter off it as it goes up, closes off the high, still on high volume. It knocks it back. And what we want to see is this sort of volume on the downside, on a down bar, to show us that there's some buying coming in when the next bar is closing higher. But I can probably mark those two off. I can probably mark sort of dropped out of even if I just do a simple channel, we've sort of dropped out of that as well in the last high, so it's not acting particularly strong at the moment. We're just in this area, previous area of accumulation, so and the low of that area was 32 cents, so that's where it can go potentially. And there's a pitchfork ahead, or on the daily chart is a bit better. So what we want to start with is a higher low on the weekly chart, and then we can see if we get some bullish response to that. If we can get above this, at least above the low of this bar, and retest, this is our last lot of high volume that came in, then that might give us a clue that they're starting to work their way back up through that supply. You've got all this weakness now here, full of trapped holders to get through, and so we'll need a bit of demand coming in from the professionals to help work our way through there. That's CHZ. Okay, this is FER, Furnace Scan Holdings, and I've charted it last week, so it's got all my rubbish on it. Anyway, there's your distribution. Really high volume up bar, closing in the middle. It's in fresh new ground, so we can't say, there's plenty of selling in there because it's closed off the low. There's no trapped holders to the left. We're in fresh new ground, so we know it's all full of professional selling. And when we see really excessive volume like that and we close off the low, we know it's just time to maybe get out of town, especially when we're in fresh new ground, because it can only be one thing, can only be the professional selling. And when we see high volume on an up bar, it's either the professionals trying to absorb supply from the left, or sellers from the left, or it's professionals actually doing the selling. And there's no trapped holders to the left, so this is professional selling. Let's collapse. Next bar confirms it, collapses down. But you probably just want to get out on the day before. But anyway, that's what's knocked it back. And people typically ask the question as it's going down, well, why is everyone selling? Well, it's not so much they're selling, it's that all the selling, professional selling, happened here, and you need the professionals actually to be buying to maintain an up move. And we go through here, and then I've marked off some high volume bars as levels if we want to get there one day. There's our resistance line from that high volume bar there. We've got one there as well. I probably should mark that as well. But anyway, I'll just keep it like that. And we've got the low of this bar and the low of these two volume bars here with some volume kicked in, some good volume. See how when you see the high volume kick in, then you see them test like that. It doesn't break the low or the high. You wouldn't have had a chance because your next bar, and that's what happens with speckies, they can just fly straight after a test. But if you think it's a good test, you might have just bought as it's breaking the high and then see where it took you. But 1 cent stocks move a bit erratically, so they're not ones I like to trade. I prefer to invest longer term if I like them for fundamental reasons. But anyway, so that's come back, and we've got a bit of support coming at the lows of those bars there, and we've gone into this bit of a range now, and we've got trapped. I'll mark this area here as trapped holders. You got caught in the trade. You'll have trapped holders up here, you'll have trapped holders up here, thought they were getting in cheap. And then we've got high volume on the down bar, smart money buy on down bars, sell on up bars, high volume down, and they test it, and it moves quickly up, but there's just not enough demand to push through all the trapped holders here. And that collapses down, then again high volume down bar, and the selling dries up she goes, and again trying to push through that area, and just not enough demand there to push through that area now, so that's acting as resistance. So but I suppose your risk at the moment, I would say, is the 1 cent and the 1.1 cent. There's not a lot of selling pressure there, and it does come in, but then it dries right up straight away, so possibly a bit of accumulation at the bottom there, but at the moment it's in a sideways movement. So I think your 1 cent is your risk at the moment, but you've also got the lows. So the low's not too far down, but it's actually 0.03 cents. So we don't want to look at that. But I mean, it's just bouncing in between those ranges at the moment. That's all we can say. I think we can't. When you see that amount of selling happens, it can take a while for reaccumulation to happen. If there's all selling, professional selling in there into that up move, then that could take a bit of time for reaccumulation to happen. And but there's nothing really there for me to bounce anything off. I mean, you'd think that when you see high volume come in on the down bar and it bounces like that, you want them to come back and test that area. There's not a lot of volume there, those, but you have this volume kick in here. Looks like they're testing on top of there at the moment, but it's on high volume. We want to see really low volume, decreasing volume as they test. So this will probably come back to the low again at the 1 cent, I'd say. And yeah, there's not a lot more we can say about that until they start making some proper higher lows. And I would say we want to get above this 1.7 cents and get above there and come back and retest on light volume, and they'll take us out of this sideways movement. At the moment, we actually have actually made a lower high and just made a lower low. So I mean, it's still trending down at the moment. That's all we can say. But around the 1.1 cents, it looks like it's the support that's holding from where they were buying before. Possibly that might be where they're buying there again at the moment. So that's FER.